Good morning, and welcome to the final day of Phase 1, legs. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit more about this series. So, it's called Learning to Lift, and I hope much of what you're learning is about how and why things are written the way they are in a program, what to do with them, but also understanding that what I'm doing right now is probably too much to get started. So what we want to do when we're getting started is what we would call the minimal effective dose. So when you haven't been exercising for a long time, or you're new to exercising altogether, lifting weights will cause considerable soreness. And even when you've been lifting for a while, when you get to new lifts, new phases, new opportunities, then it can still create soreness. But for the new lifter, soreness and not feeling well as a result of overtraining or overlifting tends to lead to stopping. Just too sore to go. I need to let my body recover. And before we know it, it's been a week, it's been 2 weeks, it's been 3 weeks. Too many other things have gotten in the way. So I wanted to talk a moment before getting into the leg routine for Phase 1 about what you should be doing. And so what I'd recommend for most people starting out is, first of all, learning your body. So we've got to learn how to stabilize your body. You probably need a trainer, not for a long time, but at least for a short period of time, to help stabilize your body, teach you a few techniques, and be ready to move forward. Now, if you have a history of lifting, that may not be the case. If you're a former high school or college athlete and had a good lifting program when you were an athlete, then you probably don't need that. But for most everyone else, you kind of do, in order to make sure that you go through this in a stable process and in a way where you won't get injured and you won't quit, because that's the key. Consistency is much more important than how much you can do or how much you do in a week or a month or even a year. Going back every day or every other day will make all the difference. So for most people starting out in our busy world that we live in today, I'd recommend, if you wanted to lift 5 or 6 times a week, then do 1 or 2 lifts a day and try to make them compound movements. In other words, working through multiple joints. And so a couple of options for that on the leg day are, of course, the barbell squat is a compound movement. The Romanian deadlift is a compound movement, multiple joints moving at one time, and working many muscle groups, large muscle groups. Hip thrust also is a compound movement. But when you're looking at, like, say, calf raises, for instance, not that calf raises aren't important, not that calves aren't important, but it is a movement that isolates really one muscle group and one joint. So we really want to focus on 1 to 2 compound movements a day if we want to work out 5 to 6 days a week. Now, if we only want to work out 2 or 3 days a week, that's perfectly fine. So let's focus on trying to get 4 of those compound movements in a day, particularly if you're going to do 2 days a week. But even if you're going to do 3, 4 compound movements you should be able to move through in, let's say, 30 minutes a day, 35 minutes of actual working sets. Now, that doesn't include any kind of warm-up or preparation time, which I certainly recommend, particularly if you're aging like myself. I have to warm up every day in order to prevent injury. But for most people, that will be sufficient. So when we're talking about that, let's do three sets of 2 exercises 4 or 5 times a week, or let's do 3 sets of 4 exercises 2 to 3 times a week. If we'll just do that, start light, don't go too heavy, get the form down. Try to take it easy. If you're not sore, fantastic. That's wonderful. If you are a little sore, that's okay too. But we don't want to be debilitated by our soreness. We don't want to stop working out because of our soreness. And we want to make sure that we can get something that's sustainable in our lifestyle and in what feels good, what makes us feel better. It's kind of miserable to be sore 4 or 5 days a week. That doesn't feel better than before when you sat on the couch. But in the grand scheme of things, it may be slightly healthier, but if you can't stick with it, it's not going to be worth it in the long run. Most people regain any kind of weight or weight loss within a couple of years. Let's not be that statistic. Let's find something that we can enjoy. Lastly, I will say, find exercises that you enjoy. Now, we can't only do our favorites, because otherwise we'll create imbalances and become too dominant in one area or another. But what we can do is we can pick our favorite exercises for different body parts and make sure that we're accomplishing them on a regular, occasionally rotating out of them to do some unilateral work and things like that. But let the fun be your guide, because if it's fun, we'll keep doing it. Anyway, we're ready to get into leg day today. I hope you enjoy what we've got for you, a couple of different perspectives and a little bit of slow-mo, hopefully to be able to kind of tag down some of the technique and things like that going forward. But I'm glad you joined me. I hope this series has been helpful. We'll continue through phase 2 and phase 3 of this program, and then I'll take some direction going forward from here. So anytime you have some advice for me, I'm all ears. I really just want to help. So thanks for joining us and have a great weekend. Leg day starts with barbell squats. As you can see, I'm giving you a couple of different angles, and I use a slant board because of my lack of ankle mobility. Pick a weight that you can use, get down to at least parallel. You can go a little lower if you like, but don't risk injury. We did try to take a little time to do a little bit of slow motion here so that you could really kind of see the entire form throughout the entire process. But I did want you to have multiple perspectives, the one from basically the person doing the squat as well as the squat from the side, so you could kind of get a good look at it. We want to go as heavy as we can and really build some muscle here. This is a great exercise. Next up, hip thrust. Oftentimes men tend to neglect this exercise because it's not super flashy, but we can add a lot of weight and a lot of load, and it's excellent at developing the posterior chain. Really works the glutes as well as a little bit in the hamstrings, and it's fairly easy to go really, really heavy. So we want to go heavy. We want to go full range of motion here, as you can see in the slow motion shot. And we want to make sure that we get everything we can out of the hip thrust. Next, we have Romanian deadlifts, another compound exercise that works the posterior chain. We want to keep a good neutral spine, and we want to slide the hips in reverse with a slight bend in our knee, and you'll feel a lot of tension really build up in your hamstrings. Then we want to explode back up and make sure that we get a full range of motion here. This is a great exercise for developing the posterior chain, and it gives you an opportunity to really work your hamstrings in a loaded position and really try to grow them, as it's often neglected in many of the exercises that we do. We stick to quad based and glute based exercises rather than really trying to work on developing the hamstrings. Romanian deadlifts can be done even with dumbbells, and so it's an exercise that's very versatile, and I'd recommend that you do it. So for calf raises, I like to use the safety squat bar. It gives me something where I can use the band pegs for handles and really go super heavy and try to get full range of motion. My slant board adjusts so that we can then get a flat slant board where we can get a full range of motion, try to get as much lift as we can, and go really, really heavy. You can also use a barbell and dumbbells, and for the longest time I just used a 2x6 in order to try to get the stretch. On to sissy squats. Now this is a body weight exercise that will really challenge you. It really stretches the quads, and it really works you harder than it appears. I'm not sure why they call it a sissy squat, because it's not for sissies at all. This will give you a great quad stretch and is a great isolation exercise for the quads. I like to use the band pegs on each side for extra stability and extra stretch. And we finish leg day with hanging leg raises. This is something that can be very hip flexor dominant if you're not careful, so you really want to focus on curling the spine. If you need a regression, you can just lift your knees, but the key is curling the spine as you go. Make sure to get full range of motion in order to get a full stretch in the abdominals at the bottom, and try to lift as high as you can with your legs out in front. If you'll note, towards the end of this exercise, I raise my knees to each side. That's just a very little bit of intercostal work that I don't do on a regular basis, but I try to incorporate at least a little bit each and every time I do hanging leg raises. This is an excellent ab builder and something that I would highly recommend, but it's also difficult. So take your time and get it right. Don't just swing through these and call them done. Thanks. Have a great day. Enjoy leg day.